All right, good evening, everybody. It's all about the wind tomorrow. Take a look at this. We're looking at wind gusts by noon up to 35 miles an hour. You kind of see that behind me over here as well. That's when the wind advisory goes into effect. This is going to be, for those maybe watching here on YouTube, this is going to be for March 4th, 2025. It's going to rain. We're not going to see a lot of tornado activity, I don't think, because at least here in North Alabama and southern Middle Tennessee, even eastern Mississippi, just because of the fact there's very little instability out there. If you've been outside tonight or you're going to be out in the morning, the air's very dry, so it's going to cool off rather quickly. And the challenge is you're going to get a line of storms. It's going to accelerate to the east. It's going to encounter this drier air, and that's going to cause it to kind of shift downward, so to speak, and the momentum, we're going to see probably what we call a wake low when this happens, and that can mean basically an oscillating wind back and forth behind the line. Now, initially, the line's going to be rather intense. The winds overall will be increasing throughout the day, but when we get the heavier rain falling through the higher winds that are above the ground even, that's going to bring some of those down. So we're going to talk about the low-level jet, how it's now increasing, forecast to increase to 95 miles an hour. So that's significant. This is going to be a big wind event. Storm threat really stretches. It's far-reaching from here all the way into Texas, but each part of the storm is going to be a bit different. So let's get into this wind timeline. And what I'm tracking here is the highest impact wind. These are going to be the 50 to 70, maybe even 80 mile per hour kind of winds. And if we start to see those widespread 70 to 80 mile an hour winds, we will be breaking into programming because those are significant and they can do considerable damage over a large area. In fact, you get a 10-mile swath of winds at 70 miles an hour, you're going to have more damage than you would with just tornadoes out there. So I've got this 50 to 80 mile per hour gusts possible down here. So we'll watch those. Those will be in this time frame, 7 to 10, mainly out west in the shoals down to Hamilton and Winfield. You get farther east, this line's eventually going to race east at about 60 miles an hour, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. We're looking at about a 1 hour increment with the highest winds. That includes the Huntsville metro area up to Fayetteville and down to Coleman. And 9 p.m. to midnight, we continue to see high winds racing through Guntersville, Albertville, Fort Payne, Rainsville, Pisgah, Ider, Section, Scottsboro, and we continue on with this. I'm going to take a look at the model here. This is the BAMS 3-kilometer model. These are wind gusts, forecast wind gusts. Notice as we go from noon, again, I've had a lot of questions about what direction is the wind going to be. These arrows are showing where the direction of the wind is. These are going to be southeast winds gusting to 40, maybe 45 miles per hour around 1 o'clock Tuesday afternoon. And you kind of want to get done with your outdoor plans. If you got to drive around, get a lot of trees. We're going to start to see trees fall from this. I have a feeling we've had situations like this in the past. I think it was a couple years ago we had a tree actually fall in a car on I-65. I don't believe there were any injuries with that. But can you imagine going 65, 70 mile an hour and you run into a tree? So a tree falling. These will be big pine trees. The most vulnerable structures are going to be mobile homes. So if you start seeing this and you live in a mobile home, don't necessarily think that just because it's not a tornado warning coming out tomorrow that you don't have a high threat for damaging winds. At 80 miles an hour, that kind of wind will flip a mobile home. These are just gusts out ahead of the main line. 4 o'clock, it's not even raining yet. And we're getting wind gusts 46, probably close to 50 miles per hour. So dangerous winds coming through. And then as we continue on, you notice we get up closer to 50. Notice how far-reaching this is. The main front is right here. This is the boundary in white there where all those arrows converge. So this will continue tracking east. There will be some rain at this time. And we're probably going to see some 55-mile-an-hour gusts over here near Coxie. They don't quite show up here, but I can see the color contrast is different, which would indicate that higher threat. Notice here comes the main line, 7 o'clock, moving through the shoals, moving east rapidly. This is accelerating to the east. So we're going to go from the winds from the southeast to the due south and then slightly southwest. So all the strongest winds are all going to be of a southerly component. And even behind this main line, we still have winds gusting to 45 miles per hour, 46 in Russellville. This is 8 o'clock, moving into East Limestone and western Madison County up to Fayetteville. And it just continues on. You're probably not going to have a lot of lightning out there and hear a lot of thunder. This is interesting here. Notice the model guidance. It almost has a secondary maximum right there. That's going to be interesting to watch, to see how that, and that may be the signs of a wake low developing. Again, a wake low is a lot like wind that slams into a seawall, like on a wave, and it keeps oscillating back and forth. It gets real choppy. So that's the basic principle of it. As we continue on here past midnight, that's when the winds, they finally start to die down. Let me see if I can find I'm going to find this real quick for you. Hour by hour. So we'll just go hour by hour through this now as well. The morning hours, not much going on tonight. Here comes the rain. About 5 o'clock, we'll see periods of rain coming in. And each one of these areas of rain coming in is going to pull down some of this upper level wind energy. And we're going to talk about that here more in just a second. But what we deal with here with this high wind is the winds coming in. The upper level, low level jet stream, about 4,000 to 5,000 feet above the ground, has winds that are going to be around 90, 95 miles an hour at this time. And that rain, as it falls through it, it pulls some of these higher wind gusts down to the surface. And that's where we get into trouble. We start to get these damaging wind reports. And that's when we can also get these embedded tornadoes. So as we move on, these are not going to be supercells. These will be areas of heavy rain, most likely. And you kind of see how everything catches up. And maybe this is why it's showing a different phase. Boy, this is just, I've got another representation I'll show you. But this has it moving through even faster. I can't quite say that I totally agree with that one. Here's the highest impact timeline here. I put this together, and I think I'm going to eventually go through, and I'm going to put more of a when to expect it alphabetically. You can find this on my Facebook page too. I'm going to go through this rather quickly. We're already about 7 minutes in here. Give me a sip of water. Our southern Tennessee counties, again, from 7 o'clock, making its way to Winchester by 11 o'clock in the evening. You could probably pause that on the YouTube channel. Now here's this low-level jet. This is what I really want to talk about. Notice the winds. This area right here, and this is 5 o'clock. So this area of wind increases to near 96 miles per hour. This is 4,000 to 5,000 feet above the ground. But this is that wind I mentioned earlier. This is that wind that's going to be pulled down as this line of storms comes in. It's going to encounter that high wind and pull some of these down. So the reason I like to look at this data here is because during the event, I go back and I can recall, okay, 6 o'clock, let's say we get a tornado warning. I'm saying, okay, that's the peak winds are coming in the mid-levels and the low levels of the atmosphere. So we're going to watch this area. Now, as I push the button and go forward in time, you're going to see it change. That's because it's not a constant variable here with the model guidance. It's going to show me 3-hour increments. So this next 3-hour increment takes us from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Notice how this area expands. We've got these 95 mile per hour winds above the ground all the way up just to the east of Nashville. So this is going to be far reaching. And even as you go down south, there's still some of these 90 mile per hour winds in the low level jet down towards Birmingham. These are due south and they're pushing into that heavy rain. And so by the time we get to midnight, the threat's pretty much over. So there's good news there. So once again, just want to emphasize threat of severe weather coming in tomorrow night. We may have some severe weather that's equivalent to tornadoes, basically dealing with severe thunderstorms. So you want to take the severe thunderstorms seriously as we go through the late evening hours. Tomorrow we'll be here tracking every step this line makes.